It was January 3rd, 2026, at 2:47 a.m. when a dream so vivid and disturbing that I couldn't distinguish it from reality drove me to the waterfall overlook deep in the rainforest preserve outside the city, and there, surrounded by the thunderous cascade of water plunging 300 feet into the mist-shrouded pool below, ancient ferns dripping with moisture that caught the moonlight like diamonds, and the primal symphony of nocturnal creatures echoing through the canopy, Jesus appeared before me with tears streaming down his face and spoke a name that shattered everything I thought I understood about divine appointments and destiny. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it. But you've been marked. You've been chosen to hear this, and what I'm about to share with you will either transform your life completely or offend you so deeply that you'll never watch this channel again. The air was thick, so thick I could taste it. That's the thing about rainforests at night. The humidity wraps around you like a living thing, warm and insistent, carrying the scent of decomposing leaves, wet earth, and something else, something ancient and green that has no name in our modern vocabulary. The temperature hovered around 78 degrees, but it felt warmer because of the moisture, because of the way my shirt clung to my back as I stood there on that wooden observation platform, my hands gripping the railing so hard my knuckles had gone white. I need you to do something for me right now. Before we go any further, I need you to type in the comments the name of someone you've been praying about, someone God has been bringing to your mind repeatedly. Don't overthink it, just type their name. And if you're serious about hearing what God wants to say to you tonight, hit that subscribe button. This channel isn't for casual viewers. It's for true believers who are ready to hear the unfiltered truth, no matter how uncomfortable it makes them. You know me as Jonathan Rumi. You know me as the man who portrays Jesus in The Chosen. But what you're about to hear has nothing to do with acting. This is real. This is raw. This is what happened to me in the early morning hours of January 3rd, and I'm still shaking as I record this message for you. The dream had been so clear. I was standing in a crowd of people, and Jesus was walking through them, touching shoulders, whispering names. But when he got to me, he didn't whisper. He shouted. He shouted a name I never expected to hear, and then he said, "I want you to be with this person." And the shock of it, the absolute impossibility of it, jolted me awake at 2:23 a.m., my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. I tried to go back to sleep. I tried to pray it away. I tried to convince myself it was just my subconscious playing tricks on me. But at 2:35 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text message from that exact person at 2:35 in the morning. They wrote, "I can't sleep. I keep feeling like God is trying to tell me something about you." I was in my car 7 minutes later. The drive to the rainforest preserve took 40 minutes, winding roads climbing into the mountains where the air grows thick with mist and the city lights fade into absolute darkness. I didn't know why I was going there. I just knew I had to. Have you ever felt that? That pull so strong it bypasses your rational mind completely and moves your body like you're a puppet on divine strings? The parking area was empty, of course. Who else would be crazy enough to be out here at this hour? The trailhead sign was barely visible in the beam of my flashlight. Waterfall overlook, 0.8 miles. I started walking. The sounds hit me first. In a rainforest at night, silence doesn't exist. There's the constant drip, drip, drip of water from the canopy, the chirping of tree frogs that sounds almost electronic, the occasional screech of a night bird, and underneath it all, growing louder with each step, the deep bass rumble of the waterfall itself. It's a sound you feel in your chest before you hear it with your ears. The trail was slick with mud and moss. Roots crossed the path like arthritic fingers reaching up from the earth. My flashlight beam caught the reflection of eyes in the undergrowth, small creatures I couldn't identify watching me pass. The trees here are old, so old their trunks are wider than my car, their bark thick and deeply furrowed, covered in layers of moss and lichen that glow faintly in the moonlight filtering through the canopy. I could feel my heart rate increasing, and not just from the exertion of the climb. Something was building. The air itself felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. When I reached the overlook platform, the full force of the waterfall's presence hit me. The sound was overwhelming, a constant roar that vibrated through the wooden planks beneath my feet. The water caught the moonlight as it fell, creating a curtain of silver that seemed to glow with its own internal light. Mist rose from the pool below, thick and swirling, occasionally catching the moon and creating brief, ghostly rainbows even in the darkness. I stood there, gripping the railing, trying to catch my breath, trying to understand why I'd been compelled to come to this place, and then he was there. I didn't see him appear. He was simply there, standing beside me at the railing, his presence so natural and so shocking at the same time that I gasped and nearly fell backward. But his hand was on my shoulder, steadying me, and the warmth of that touch was more real than anything I'd ever felt. "Jonathan," he said, and his voice somehow cut through the roar of the waterfall without being loud. It was like he was speaking directly into my soul, bypassing my ears entirely. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I could only stare at him, at the face I'd studied for years, the face I'd tried to portray with honor and authenticity, but seeing it now, really seeing it, I realized I'd never understood it at all. There was such depth in his eyes, such infinite compassion mixed with infinite sorrow, such fierce love mixed with fierce determination. "Do you know why I brought you here?" he asked. I shook my head, still unable to form words. He turned to look at the waterfall, and I followed his gaze. "Water always flows downward," he said. "It follows the path of least resistance. It goes where gravity pulls it. But look what happens when it falls." He gestured to the cascade before us. "It becomes beautiful. It becomes powerful. It becomes life-giving to everything below." "I don't understand," I finally managed to whisper. "You dreamed about a name tonight," he said, turning back to me. "And that name shocked you. It offended your sense of propriety. It violated your understanding of how I work, of who belongs with whom, of what makes sense in the natural order of things." My throat tightened. "Yes." "Say the name," he commanded gently. I couldn't. The name stuck in my throat like a physical object. "Say it, Jonathan." And I did. I spoke the name that had been shouted in my dream, the name of the person who had texted me at 2:35 a.m., and as soon as the syllables left my lips, the wind picked up. It came from nowhere, a sudden gust that sent the waterfall's mist swirling around us, soaking us both, and in that mist, I saw something. I saw two figures standing together. One was me. The other was the person whose name I'd just spoken. And we were standing in a place of ministry, speaking to thousands, and the power flowing through us was like the waterfall itself. Overwhelming, unstoppable, life-giving. "No," I said, shaking my head. "That's impossible. That person is who I've chosen." Jesus interrupted, and his voice was firm now, brooking no argument. "Is who I've been preparing, is who I've been calling, is who you've been running from because you're more concerned with what people will think than with what I've ordained." The tears came then, hot and fast, mixing with the cold mist on my face. "But people will talk, people will judge, people will say—" "People said I was demon-possessed," he said quietly. "People said I was a drunkard and a glutton. People said I blasphemed. People killed me, Jonathan. Do you think I care what people say?" The waterfall seemed to grow louder, or maybe it was just that my other senses were shutting down, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. "I want you to understand something," Jesus continued, and he turned to face me fully now, his hands on both my shoulders. "The person whose name I've given you, this isn't about romance, though it may include that. This isn't about convenience, though it will be anything but convenient. This isn't about what makes sense to your natural mind. This is about kingdom assignment. This is about divine purpose. This is about two people I've been preparing separately who must now come together for what I'm about to do in this season." "But why them?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why not someone more appropriate, someone who fits better, someone who won't cause confusion and controversy?" He smiled then, and it was the saddest, most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. "Because I don't call the equipped, Jonathan. I equip the called. And because the very thing that makes this pairing seem impossible to you is exactly what will make it powerful for my purposes, your weakness combined with their strength, your gifts complementing their gifts, your brokenness healing their brokenness, and their brokenness healing yours." The wind picked up again, and this time the mist formed into images all around us. I saw flashes of moments I couldn't fully comprehend, conversations that hadn't happened yet, prayers prayed together, battles fought side by side, victories celebrated, failures mourned, and through it all, a thread of gold connecting two hearts that had no business being connected in the natural realm. "I'm showing you this now," Jesus said, "because the enemy is about to launch his greatest attack against this assignment. He's going to use your fear. He's going to use your pride. He's going to use other people's opinions. He's going to use your own sense of unworthiness. He's going to whisper that you misheard me, that you're being presumptuous, that you're going to ruin everything if you move forward." "How do I fight that?" I asked desperately. "You remember this moment," he said. You remember standing here at this waterfall in the middle of the night. You remember the mist on your face and my hands on your shoulders and the sound of my voice speaking truth into your spirit. And you remember that I don't make mistakes. I don't give assignments I haven't already empowered you to complete. And I don't bring people together without purpose. I looked back at the waterfall, watching the endless cascade of water, and something clicked in my understanding. The water doesn't question where it's going, I said slowly. No, Jesus agreed. It trusts the path I've carved for it. It trusts that the fall, as terrifying as it might seem, leads to something beautiful. It trusts that what looks like destruction is actually transformation. He released my shoulders and stepped back, and I felt the loss of his touch like a physical ache. I'm going to show you more tomorrow night, he said. Meet me here again, same time. There are things you need to understand about this assignment, about this person, about what I'm calling you both into. But for now, I need you to do one thing. What? I asked. Contact them. Today. Before fear talks you out of it. Before logic convinces you that you imagined all of this. Send them a message. Tell them you need to talk. Don't explain everything yet. They're not ready to hear it all. But open the door. Take the first step. Let the water start flowing. And then he was gone. Not gradually, not with any dramatic exit, just gone. And I was standing alone on the platform, soaked with mist, shaking with cold and adrenaline and holy fear, staring at a waterfall that suddenly looked different to me. It looked like a promise. It looked like a prophecy. It looked like a path I was terrified to walk, but knew I had no choice but to follow. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for the sky to begin lightening in the east, turning from black to deep purple to pale gray. Long enough for the nocturnal creatures to quiet and the daybirds to begin their morning songs. Long enough for my clothes to go from soaked to merely damp in the humid air. When I finally turned to leave, I looked back one more time at the waterfall, and I could have sworn I saw two figures standing in the mist where Jesus and I had stood, holding hands, facing the cascade together. Listen to me carefully. If you're still watching this, it's not an accident. God is speaking to you about someone right now, someone whose name has been on your heart, someone you've been dismissing or avoiding or arguing with God about, and He's saying the same thing to you that He said to me. I want you to be with this person. Maybe it's not romantic. Maybe it's a business partnership. Maybe it's a ministry collaboration. Maybe it's a friendship that will change the trajectory of your life. Maybe it's a reconciliation with someone you've been estranged from. But whatever it is, you've been running from it because it doesn't make sense, because people will talk, because it's inconvenient or uncomfortable or controversial. And God is saying, I don't care about your comfort, I care about my purpose. Tomorrow night, I'm going to tell you what happened when I went back to that waterfall at 2:47 a.m. on January 4th. I'm going to tell you what Jesus showed me about the cost of obedience and the cost of disobedience. I'm going to tell you the specific warnings He gave me about what happens when we ignore divine appointments because we're more concerned with human approval than heavenly assignment. But right now, today, I need you to do what He told me to do. Contact that person, open the door, take the first step. Type "I'm ready" in the comments if you're willing to obey, even if it terrifies you. Type the first initial of their name if you need prayer for courage. This is going to cost you something. It's going to cost you your reputation, maybe. Your comfort, definitely. Your sense of control, absolutely. But what you'll gain is worth more than everything you'll lose. The water doesn't question the fall, it trusts the path. Are you ready to trust? I sent the message at 9:17 a.m. on January 3rd, exactly 6 hours and 30 minutes after I left the waterfall overlook. My hands shook so badly I had to retype it 3 times before I could hit send. It was simple, just 8 words. We need to talk. Can we meet today? The response came in 43 seconds. Yes, I've been expecting this. Those 5 words confirmed everything and terrified me even more. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand what happened in those hours between leaving the waterfall at dawn and returning to it the next night. Because the enemy doesn't wait. The moment you step toward obedience, hell mobilizes against you. My phone rang 7 times that day, 7 different people, none of whom typically call me, all with urgent matters that suddenly needed my attention. 3 ministry opportunities that would require me to travel extensively, alone. 2 friends expressing concern about something they'd heard that turned out to be completely fabricated. 1 family member calling to remind me of a past failure, seemingly out of nowhere. And 1 wrong number that wasn't wrong at all, someone asking if I was sure about the decision I was about to make. I hadn't told anyone about the decision. That's how you know you're on the right path. When hell gets nervous, when the enemy overplays his hand, when the attacks come from directions that make no logical sense, you're about to step into something that terrifies the kingdom of darkness. I met with the person at 3:00 p.m. We sat in a coffee shop for 4 hours, and I'm not going to tell you everything we discussed because some things are sacred, some things are private, and some things you're not meant to know. But I will tell you this. They had received a dream too, the same night, at the exact same time, and in their dream, Jesus had spoken my name. We were both wrecked. We were both terrified. We were both absolutely certain that something bigger than both of us was in motion. He told me to meet him at the waterfall again tonight, I said as we were leaving. At the same time. They looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. He told me the same thing. So it was that at 2:47 a.m. on January 4th, 2026, I found myself once again driving those winding mountain roads into the rainforest preserve, but this time I wasn't alone. The person whose name had shocked me, whose divine assignment to my life had seemed impossible just 24 hours earlier, sat in the passenger seat, silent, praying, occasionally wiping tears from their eyes. The temperature had dropped. It was 68 degrees now, and a front had moved in, bringing with it a light rain that was more mist than actual drops, the kind of rain that doesn't fall so much as hangs in the air, soaking everything slowly, thoroughly, inevitably. Our headlights cut through the darkness and the mist, illuminating the dense vegetation on either side of the road, massive tree ferns, hanging vines, flowers that only bloom at night, releasing their heavy, sweet fragrance into the humid air. Neither of us spoke during the drive. What was there to say? We were both walking into the unknown, following a summons from the divine that made no earthly sense but carried the weight of absolute authority. The parking area was empty again, just as it had been the night before. We got out of the car, and I handed them the spare flashlight I'd brought. The rain intensified slightly, not enough to be called a storm, but enough that we were both soaked within minutes of starting down the trail. "I'm scared," they said quietly as we walked. "Me too," I admitted. "What if we're wrong? What if we're just two people having similar dreams and we're reading too much into it?" I stopped walking and turned to face them, my flashlight beam catching the rain between us, making it look like we were standing in a shower of diamonds. "Do you really believe that?" They were quiet for a long moment, and I could hear the waterfall in the distance, that deep bass rumble that never stops, never wavers, never questions its purpose. "No," they finally said. "No, I don't believe that. I believe God is doing something that's going to wreck us and remake us and use us in ways we can't imagine yet. And that's what scares me." We continued walking. The trail seemed different at night for the second time. Familiar now, but still mysterious. I noticed things I'd missed in my panicked rush the night before. A massive strangler fig wrapped around a dying tree, slowly crushing it while simultaneously holding it upright. Mushrooms glowing with bioluminescence on a rotting log. The eyes of a large bird watching us from a branch overhead, unafraid, curious. When we reached the overlook platform, the waterfall was even more spectacular than it had been the night before. The rain had increased the flow, and the cascade was wider, more powerful, sending up clouds of mist that rose 50 feet into the air. The sound was almost deafening, a constant roar that you could feel in your bones, in your teeth, in the hollow spaces of your body. We stood at the railing, side by side, but not touching, both of us staring at the falling water, both of us waiting. "He's here," they said suddenly. And he was. Jesus stood on the other side of the platform, leaning against the railing as if he'd been there for hours, waiting for us to arrive. He was soaked with rain and mist, his hair plastered to his head, his clothes clinging to his frame, and he looked more human and more divine than I'd ever seen him look. "You came together," he said, and there was such satisfaction in his voice, such joy, that I felt tears spring to my eyes. "Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how many people I call to divine assignments who refuse to come, who let fear win, who choose comfort over calling?" "We almost didn't," the person beside me said honestly. "I almost texted Jonathan at midnight and told him I couldn't do this." "But you didn't," Jesus said, pushing off from the railing and walking toward us. "You felt the fear and came anyway. You felt the doubt and came anyway. You felt the weight of what people will say and came anyway. That's faith, not the absence of fear, but obedience in spite of it." He stood before us now, and the rain seemed to fall around him rather than on him, creating a space of relative dryness where he stood. "I'm going to show you both something tonight," he said. Something about the assignment I'm giving you. Something about why it has to be the two of you together. Something about what I'm going to do through your obedience. He turned and gestured to the waterfall, and as he did, the scene before us began to change. The water was still falling. The sound was still thunderous, but now I could see images in the cascade, like a movie being projected onto a screen of liquid silver. I saw a church, not a building, but a gathering of people, thousands of them, in a field somewhere under an open sky. And on a stage at the front, the two of us stood together, speaking, teaching, leading worship. But it wasn't like any church service I'd ever seen. There was a power present that was almost visible, a tangible presence of the Holy Spirit that moved through the crowd like wind through wheat, bending people to their knees, lifting hands in surrender, breaking hard hearts, and healing broken ones. "This is what's coming," Jesus said quietly. "This is what I'm preparing you for. A move of my Spirit unlike anything this generation has seen. A revival that will shake nations and topple kingdoms and bring millions into my presence. And you two," he pointed at us, "you two are going to be at the center of it." "Why us?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the waterfall. "Why not someone more qualified, someone with more experience, someone who hasn't failed as many times as we have?" Jesus turned to look at me, and his expression was fierce. "Because I don't anoint resumes, Jonathan. I anoint obedience. I don't use the qualified. I qualify the used. And because your failures, your brokenness, your absolute certainty that you're not enough, that's exactly what makes you perfect for this assignment. Pride can't carry what I'm about to pour out. Only humility can. Only people who know they're completely dependent on me can sustain the weight of this glory." The image in the waterfall shifted. Now I saw the two of us in different settings, in living rooms, in coffee shops, in prisons, in hospitals, in government buildings, in homeless shelters. Everywhere we went, the presence of God went with us, and people were transformed. Not because of anything we said or did, but because we carried something, an anointing that was visible even in the vision, like a golden light that surrounded us and touched everyone we encountered. "But here's what you need to understand," Jesus said, and his voice grew harder now, more urgent. "This assignment will cost you everything, everything. Your reputation, people will say terrible things about you, your comfort. You'll go places and do things that terrify you. Your privacy, your lives will become public property. Your security, you'll have to trust me for provision in ways you've never had to trust before. Your relationships, some people you love will walk away from you because they don't understand what I'm doing." He paused, letting that sink in, and the rain intensified, drumming on the platform roof, running in rivers off the edges. "The enemy knows what I'm planning to do through you," Jesus continued. "He's known it longer than you have, and he's going to throw everything he has at you to prevent this partnership from forming. He's going to attack your minds with doubt. He's going to attack your hearts with fear. He's going to attack your relationship with confusion and misunderstanding. He's going to use other believers to speak against you. He's going to use circumstances to make obedience seem impossible. He's going to offer you alternatives that look easier, safer, more reasonable." The person beside me spoke up, their voice shaking. "How do we fight that? How do we stand against all of that?" Jesus smiled, and it was the smile of a general who knows the battle is already won. "You remember this moment. You remember standing here together in the rain at 3 a.m, watching me show you what's coming. You remember that I called you, I chose you, I equipped you, and I will sustain you, and you cling to each other. That's why it has to be both of you. Alone, you'll fall. Together, you're unstoppable." The image in the waterfall changed again, and this time what I saw made my blood run cold. I saw the two of us separated, going different directions, pursuing different paths. And everywhere we went, there was ministry, there was some measure of success, there was even some fruit. But it was a fraction of what we'd seen in the first vision. It was like comparing a candle to the sun. And more than that, there was a sadness that hung over both of us in this vision. A sense of something missing, something lost. A divine appointment refused that left a hole nothing else could fill. "This is what happens if you choose comfort over calling," Jesus said, and his voice was heavy with sorrow. "You'll still be used. I'll still work through you, but you'll spend the rest of your lives wondering what might have been. You'll lie awake at night feeling the ghost of this moment, this choice, this path not taken. And when you stand before me at the end of your days, you'll see what could have been, and you'll weep for the lost potential, the unreached millions, the revival that didn't come because you were more concerned with what people thought than with what I commanded." The vision faded, and we were left staring at just water again, just the endless cascade falling into the mist-shrouded pool below. I need you to understand something, Jesus said, stepping closer to us, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him despite the cold rain. This isn't a request. This isn't a suggestion. This isn't one possible path among many. This is the assignment I've prepared you for since before you were born. Every pain you've experienced, every failure you've endured, every lesson you've learned, it was all preparation for this. And if you refuse it, if you walk away from it, you'll survive. You'll even have a measure of success in other things, but you'll never be fully alive. You'll never experience the fullness of what I created you for. You'll never know the joy of complete surrender to my purposes. He reached out and placed one hand on my shoulder and one hand on the shoulder of the person beside me. The warmth of his touch was shocking, like being touched by the sun itself, and I felt something flow into me. Courage, strength, certainty, peace. I'm going to tell you both something now that you need to hold on to in the days ahead, he said. The people who criticize you don't know what I've told you. The people who judge you don't see what I see. The people who question your choices don't understand my purposes. And you must not, let their opinions drown out my voice. You cannot let their fear infect your faith. You cannot let their limitations define your possibilities. The wind picked up suddenly, violently, sending the waterfall's mist swirling around us in a vortex. The rain came harder, and lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the entire rainforest canopy for a brief, brilliant moment. There are people watching this right now, Jesus said, and I realized he was speaking not just to us but through us to whoever would eventually hear this message, who are in the exact same situation. I've given them a name. I've shown them an assignment. I've called them to a partnership that makes no earthly sense but carries my divine seal, and they're terrified. They're making excuses. They're looking for a way out. They're hoping I'll change my mind or give them an easier option. He released our shoulders and stepped back, and the loss of his touch was like stepping from a warm house into a blizzard. Tell them, he said to me specifically, tell them that I don't change my mind. Tell them that the easy path leads nowhere they want to go. Tell them that the cost of obedience is high, but the cost of disobedience is infinitely higher. Tell them that they're running out of time. Tell them that I'm calling them to come to their own waterfall, their own place of encounter, their own moment of decision, and tell them that I'm waiting there for them, but I won't wait forever. The lightning flashed again, closer this time, and the thunder that followed shook the platform beneath our feet. The waterfall seemed to glow with its own light, and in that light I saw one final image. The two of us, years older, standing together on that stage from the first vision, but now the crowd had grown beyond counting, stretching to the horizon in every direction. And above us the sky was open, and the glory of God was falling like rain, like the waterfall itself, an endless cascade of presence and power that was transforming everything it touched. This is what's possible, Jesus said. This is what's waiting. This is what hangs in the balance of your obedience. Not just your destiny, but the destiny of millions who will be reached through you. Not just your story, but the stories of countless others who will be saved, healed, delivered, and set free because you said yes when it made no sense to say yes. And then he was gone again, and we were alone on the platform, soaked to the skin, shaking with cold and awe and holy fear. The person beside me turned to look at me, and in the dim light of our flashlights, I could see tears streaming down their face, mixing with the rain. I'm in, they said simply. I don't understand it. I'm terrified of it, but I'm in. Me too, I said. We stood there for a long time, watching the waterfall, letting the rain soak us, letting the magnitude of what we'd just experienced settle into our bones. And slowly, gradually, the rain began to ease. The wind calmed. The lightning moved off into the distance. And as the sky began to lighten with the approaching dawn, a bird began to sing somewhere in the canopy above us, a clear, pure note that cut through the sound of the waterfall like a promise. We walked back to the car in silence, but it was a different kind of silence than the one we'd walked in with. This was the silence of two people who had just signed a contract written in the eternal realm, who had just committed to something that would define the rest of their lives, who had just stepped off a cliff trusting that the God who called them would teach them to fly on the way down. Listen to me. If you're still watching this, you need to ask yourself a question. What is God calling you to that you're running from? Who is the person he's trying to connect you with that you're avoiding? What assignment is he offering you that you're refusing because it doesn't fit your plan, your timeline, your understanding of how things should work? I'm going to tell you what Jesus told us. You're running out of time. Tomorrow night, and this is the final encounter, the most intense one, I'm going to share what happened when we went back to the waterfall one more time. I'm going to tell you about the warning Jesus gave us about the specific date when the window of opportunity closes. I'm going to tell you about the judgment that comes when we persistently refuse divine assignments. And I'm going to tell you about the person in the vision who said no, who chose comfort, and what their life looked like as a result. But today, right now, I need you to do something. I need you to stop running. I need you to stop making excuses. I need you to reach out to that person, take that step, make that call, send that message, have that conversation. Type "I'm done running" in the comments if you're ready to surrender to God's plan even though it terrifies you. The water doesn't question the fall. It trusts the path carved for it. It trusts that what looks like destruction is actually transformation. It trusts that the God who created the waterfall knows what he's doing. Can you trust him? Will you trust him? The clock is ticking, the window is closing, and Jesus is standing at your own personal waterfall, waiting for you to show up. Will you come? January 5th, 2026, 2:47 a.m., the third night, the final encounter. But this time, everything was different. The rain that had been gentle the night before had transformed into a full tropical storm. The wind howled through the rainforest canopy with a sound like 1,000 voices screaming. The temperature had dropped to 62 degrees, and the rain came in horizontal sheets, driven by gusts that bent the massive trees and sent branches crashing to the forest floor. The waterfall, already powerful, had become a raging torrent, swollen with runoff from the mountains above, its roar so loud that even shouting couldn't be heard over it. We almost didn't come. At 2:15 a.m., sitting in my car in the parking lot with the person God had assigned to my life, watching the trees whip back and forth in the wind, watching the rain hammer the windshield so hard we could barely see 3 feet in front of us, every rational part of my brain was screaming that this was insane, that we should turn around, that God wouldn't ask us to risk our lives walking a muddy trail in the dark during a storm just to meet him at a waterfall. Maybe this is a sign we shouldn't go, they said, voicing what I was thinking. But even as the words left their mouth, we both knew they were wrong. This wasn't a sign to turn back. This was spiritual warfare manifesting in the natural realm. This was the enemy throwing everything he had at us to prevent this final encounter, this final revelation, this final sealing of the assignment. He told us to come, I said. He didn't say it would be easy. He didn't say it would be safe. He just said to come, so we went. The trail was treacherous. What had been slick with mud the previous nights was now a river of water flowing downhill, carrying leaves and small branches with it. Our flashlights barely penetrated the darkness and the rain. Every step was an act of faith, trusting that the ground would hold, that we wouldn't slip and fall, that a falling branch wouldn't crush us. The wind tore at our clothes, our hair, tried to push us backward, tried to convince us to give up and go home, but we kept walking. The sounds of the rainforest were completely drowned out by the storm. No tree frogs, no night birds, no insects, just wind and rain and thunder that rolled through the mountains like artillery fire. Lightning flashed constantly now, turning night into day for brief, strobing moments that revealed the forest in stark, terrifying detail. Trees bent at impossible angles, vines whipped through the air like serpents. Water poured from the canopy in waterfalls of its own, drenching us so thoroughly that our clothes clung to us like a second skin. "Jonathan!" they shouted, grabbing my arm. "Look!" I followed their pointing finger and saw, in the next flash of lightning, that a tree had fallen across the trail ahead of us. A massive tree, its trunk easily 4 feet in diameter, blocking the path completely. We'd have to climb over it or turn back. "This is crazy!" they yelled over the storm. "Maybe we really should—" But I was already moving toward the fallen tree, because I knew, with a certainty that bypassed all logic, that this was a test, that the enemy had put this obstacle here, or at least was using it, to make us quit when we were so close. And I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. I climbed over the trunk, my hands slipping on the wet bark, my feet struggling to find purchase, and then reached back to help pull them over. On the other side, we stood for a moment, catching our breath, and that's when I heard it. Underneath the storm, underneath the thunder and wind and rain, there was another sound. A voice, singing. "Do you hear that?" I asked. They nodded, eyes wide. "Is that—" "Come," the voice called, and it was Jesus, and his voice cut through the storm like a sword through silk. "Come to me." We ran the last 100 yards to the overlook platform, slipping and sliding, our flashlights bouncing wildly, and when we burst onto the platform, what we saw stopped us in our tracks. Jesus stood at the center of the platform and he was glowing. There's no other word for it. Light emanated from him, pure white light that pushed back the darkness, that made the rain falling around him look like diamonds, that illuminated the entire waterfall behind him, and the waterfall itself. It had become something otherworldly. The water fell in slow motion, each drop visible, each drop catching his light and refracting it into 1,000 colors. The mist rose in spirals and columns, forming shapes that looked almost like angels, almost like living beings made of water and light. "You came," he said, and his voice was different now, louder, more powerful. This was not the gentle Jesus of the first night or even the urgent Jesus of the second night. This was the Jesus of Revelation, the Jesus with eyes like flames and a voice like rushing waters, the Jesus who judges nations and makes war on evil. "You came through the storm. You came past the obstacles. You came despite your fear. And now I'm going to show you what I couldn't show you before. Now I'm going to reveal what you weren't ready to see. Now I'm going to speak the words that will either make you or break you." He raised his hand, and the storm intensified. The wind became a gale. The rain became a deluge. The lightning struck so close we could smell the ozone, could feel the electricity in the air, and in the waterfall behind him images began to form again, but these were different from the visions of the previous nights. These were harder, darker, more terrible. I saw the two of us separated, not just going different directions like in the previous vision, but actively avoiding each other, running from each other. And I saw the reason why. Fear. Fear of what people would say, fear of the cost, fear of the assignment itself. And as we ran, I saw doors closing, opportunities vanishing, the people who were supposed to be reached through our partnership remaining lost, sick, bound, broken. I saw the revival that was supposed to come being delayed, diminished, diverted to others who said yes when we said no. "This is what happens," Jesus said, his voice like thunder. "When my chosen vessels refuse their assignments, the work still gets done, I will still move, but it takes longer, it costs more, and those who were supposed to be part of it miss their moment, miss their purpose, miss the very reason they were born." The image shifted, and now I saw something that made me want to fall to my knees and weep. I saw a specific person, a young woman, maybe 25 years old, standing on the edge of a bridge at night, ready to jump. And I knew, somehow I knew, that this woman was supposed to be reached through the ministry that would come from our obedience, that she was supposed to be at that gathering in the field, supposed to encounter Jesus through our partnership, supposed to be saved and healed and set free. But in this vision, we weren't there. We had said no, we had chosen comfort. And so she was alone on that bridge, and as I watched in horror, she jumped. "No!" I screamed, and the sound was ripped away by the wind. "Yes," Jesus said, and his face was terrible in its sorrow. "This is the cost of disobedience, not just to you, but to everyone who was supposed to be touched by your obedience. Every person you don't reach because you refuse the assignment is blood on your hands. Every soul that remains lost because you chose comfort over calling is a weight you'll carry into eternity. Every life that isn't transformed because you were more concerned with reputation than with obedience is a tragedy that could have been prevented." The person beside me was sobbing now, their whole body shaking. "We'll do it," they cried out. "We'll say yes. We'll obey. Please, don't show us any more." But Jesus wasn't finished. The image in the waterfall changed again, and now I saw us years in the future. We were older, maybe in our 60s or 70s, and we were sitting in separate houses, separate cities, separate lives, and we were comfortable. We had nice homes, successful careers, even some measure of ministry. But our eyes were empty. There was a hollowness to us, a sense of something vital missing. And I watched as this older version of me sat alone in a room, looking at a photograph of the two of us from this very night, standing together at this waterfall, and I saw tears running down his weathered face as he whispered, "What if we had said yes?" "This is the question that will haunt you," Jesus said, "if you choose comfort over calling. What if? What if we had obeyed? What if we had trusted? What if we had been brave enough to face the criticism, strong enough to endure the cost, faithful enough to see it through? You'll have everything the world says you should want, and you'll be empty. You'll have success without significance. You'll have achievement without anointing. You'll have a life without the very thing that would have made it worth living." He lowered his hand and the images faded, leaving just the waterfall again, just the storm, just the three of us on the platform. "But I didn't bring you here just to show you what happens if you fail," Jesus said, and his voice softened slightly. "I brought you here to show you what happens if you succeed. I brought you here to give you the strength you'll need for what's coming. I brought you here to seal this assignment with a promise and a warning. He stepped toward us, and the light emanating from him grew brighter, warmer, and I felt it wash over me like a wave of liquid love. If you say yes, truly yes, completely yes, irrevocably yes, I will be with you every step of the way. Every battle you face, I'll fight beside you. Every attack the enemy launches, I'll be your shield. Every moment you feel like giving up, I'll be your strength. Every time you're criticized, I'll be your defender. Every time you're afraid, I'll be your courage. You will never, never be alone in this. The person beside me reached out and took my hand, and I felt the rightness of it, the divine orchestration of it, the absolute certainty that this was what we were created for. But you need to understand the timeline, Jesus continued, and his voice grew urgent again. You have 30 days from this moment, 30 days to fully commit to this assignment, 30 days to take the practical steps I'm going to show you, 30 days to align your lives with this calling. After that, the window closes. Not forever, I'm merciful and I give second chances. But this particular moment, this particular opportunity, this particular move of my spirit that I'm inviting you into, it has a timeline, and if you miss it, you'll spend years trying to get back to where you could have been if you'd just obeyed when I first called. Lightning struck so close that the platform shook, and in that flash of light, I saw something carved into the railing where Jesus stood. Words that hadn't been there before, burned into the wood as if by fire. February 4th, 2026. That's your deadline, Jesus said. 30 days from tonight. By February 4th, you must have made your choice public. You must have taken the steps I'm showing you. You must have moved from decision to action, because on February 5th, the next phase begins, and if you're not in position, you'll miss it. He turned to look directly at me, and his eyes were fire. Jonathan, I'm going to say something now that's not just for you and not just for the person standing beside you. This is for everyone who will ever hear this message. This is for every person watching who has been given a divine assignment and is hesitating. This is for every believer who knows what I've called them to do, but is waiting for a more convenient time, a safer option, a clearer sign. The storm reached its crescendo. The wind screamed. The rain fell in torrents. The thunder was continuous, overlapping, deafening, and Jesus raised his voice above it all. Stop waiting for permission from people who don't hear my voice. Stop seeking approval from those who don't understand my purposes. Stop letting fear disguise itself as wisdom. Stop calling disobedience waiting on God when I've already told you what to do. The time is now. The moment is here. The window is open, but it won't stay open forever. And then, as suddenly as it had intensified, the storm stopped. Not gradually, not slowly, but instantly. The wind died. The rain ceased. The thunder fell silent. And in the sudden, shocking stillness, we could hear the waterfall clearly, its constant roar now sounding almost peaceful in comparison to the chaos that had just surrounded us. Jesus' light began to fade, and he looked more human again, more like the Jesus I'd seen on the first night, but his eyes still held that fire, that intensity, that absolute authority. I'm going to give you both something now, he said quietly, a gift and a burden, a promise and a responsibility. He reached out and touched our foreheads, one hand on each of us, and I felt something flow into me. It was like being plugged into a power source, like having liquid courage poured directly into my veins, like receiving a download of everything I would need for the assignment ahead: wisdom, strength, discernment, boldness, compassion, authority. But along with it came the weight of the souls who would be reached, the weight of the responsibility, the weight of the calling itself. You carry my presence now, Jesus said, not just with you, but in you, and everyone you encounter will sense it, whether they understand it or not. Some will be drawn to it, some will be repelled by it, some will try to explain it away, but no one will be able to deny that something is different about you, that you carry something they don't have, that you've been marked by the divine. He removed his hands, and I staggered slightly, overwhelmed by what I'd just received. Go now, he said. Go and prepare, go and obey, go and watch what I do through your yes, and remember, 30 days, February 4th, the clock is ticking. He turned to walk toward the waterfall, and as he did, the mist rose up to meet him, enveloping him, and when it cleared, he was gone. We stood there in the sudden silence, in the sudden stillness, and slowly became aware of our surroundings again. The storm had passed completely. The sky was clearing. Stars were visible through breaks in the clouds, and on the eastern horizon the first hint of dawn was beginning to show, turning the sky from black to deep purple. Did that really just happen? They whispered. Yes, I said. And now we have to decide what we're going to do about it. We walked back to the car in silence, but this time it was the silence of two people who had just been to the mountaintop, who had just seen behind the veil, who had just been commissioned for something that would define not just their lives, but the lives of countless others. The fallen tree was still across the trail, but somehow it seemed smaller now, less intimidating. We climbed over it easily, and as we did, I noticed something. In the bark, where my hand had gripped it on the way in, there was a handprint burned into the wood. Not my handprint, a larger one. His handprint. A reminder that he had been with us even in the obstacle, even in the test, even in the moment we thought we were alone. When we reached the car and got inside, we just sat there for a long time, not starting the engine, not speaking, just processing. The sky continued to lighten. Birds began to sing. The rainforest was waking up around us, and it felt like we were waking up too, like we'd been asleep our whole lives and were only now truly opening our eyes. 30 days, they finally said. 30 days, I agreed. What do we do first? And that's when I knew. That's when the clarity came. That's when the practical steps Jesus had promised to show us began to download into my spirit. We tell people, I said. We make it public. We stop hiding what God is doing because we're afraid of criticism. We step into the light and let the chips fall where they may. They nodded slowly. That's going to cost us. Everything worth doing costs us something, I said. The question is whether we're willing to pay the price. Listen to me. If you're still watching this, you need to understand something. This isn't just my story. This is your story too. God is speaking to you right now about an assignment you've been avoiding, about a person you're supposed to connect with, about a calling you're supposed to step into, about a yes you're supposed to say, and He's giving you a deadline. I don't know what your specific date is. I don't know how much time you have, but I know this: you don't have forever. There is a window of opportunity, and it's closing. There is a moment when God says now, and if you say later, you might miss it entirely. Tomorrow, and this is the final message in this series, I'm going to give you the practical steps. I'm going to tell you exactly what Jesus told us to do in those 30 days. I'm going to give you a roadmap for stepping into divine assignments even when they terrify you. I'm going to share the specific daily practice that will keep you anchored when the storms come and the critics attack and your own mind tries to talk you out of obedience. But today, right now, I need you to make a decision. I need you to stop running. I need you to stop making excuses. I need you to stop waiting for a more convenient time. Type February 4th in the comments if you're committing to your own 30-day deadline. Type the first initial of the person God is calling you to connect with. Type, I'm all in if you're ready to pay the price of obedience, whatever that price might be. The waterfall doesn't stop falling because the storm comes. It doesn't pause because the path is difficult. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It just keeps flowing, keeps falling, keeps fulfilling its purpose. Can you do the same? Will you do the same? The clock is ticking, the window is closing, and Jesus is waiting for your answer. What will it be? I'm recording this message on January 7th, 2026, 48 hours after the final encounter at the waterfall, and I need to tell you something that happened yesterday that confirms everything I've shared with you over these past 3 nights. But first, let me take you back to the waterfall one more time. I went alone this time, in daylight. At 2 p.m. on January 6th, I drove back to that rainforest preserve, parked in the same spot, and walked that trail in the sunshine. I needed to see it again. I needed to confirm that it was real, that the platform was still there, that the waterfall still existed, that I hadn't somehow dreamed the entire thing. The trail looked completely different in daylight. What had been mysterious and dangerous in the darkness was now simply beautiful. The massive trees that had seemed threatening at night were revealed as ancient guardians, their trunks covered in emerald moss, their branches creating a cathedral ceiling hundreds of feet above. The flowers I'd smelled but couldn't see were now visible: brilliant red heliconias, delicate white orchids, purple passion flowers hanging from vines. Birds flashed through the canopy in explosions of color: toucans, parrots, hummingbirds. The fallen tree was still there, the one we'd climbed over during the storm. And yes, the handprint was still burned into the bark. I stood there for 10 minutes, just staring at it, running my own hand over it, feeling the grooves where his fingers had gripped the wood. Physical proof. Tangible evidence. This wasn't a hallucination or a dream or an overactive imagination. This was real. When I reached the overlook platform, I stood at the railing where Jesus had stood, where we had stood together, and I looked at the waterfall in full daylight. It was magnificent. The water fell in a perfect curtain of white, catching the afternoon sun and creating permanent rainbows in the mist. The pool below was a deep emerald green, surrounded by ferns and flowering plants. The sound was still thunderous, but somehow peaceful too, a constant reminder that some things never stop, never waver, never question their purpose. And there, carved into the railing where I'd seen it burned in the lightning flash, were the words, February 4th, 2026. I took a photograph. I have it on my phone. I'm looking at it right now as I record this, physical proof that this happened, that this is real, that God is holding us to a deadline. But here's what happened yesterday that I need to tell you about. At 3:47 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. On the other end was a woman I'd never met, never spoken to, had no connection to whatsoever. She was crying. "I don't know why I'm calling you," she said. "I don't even know how I got your number, but I had a dream last night, and Jesus told me to call you and tell you this. The young woman on the bridge is real. Her name is Sarah. She lives in Portland, and if you obey, you'll meet her on March 15th, and she'll tell you that she was planning to end her life on February 10th, but something stopped her, something changed, someone reached her, and that someone will be you, if you say yes." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. Because I hadn't told anyone about the vision of the woman on the bridge. I hadn't shared that detail publicly. It was too painful, too personal, too heavy. And yet this stranger was calling me to confirm it, to give me a name, to give me a date, to give me proof that what I saw in that waterfall vision was a real person with a real life hanging in the balance of my obedience. "Are you still there?" the woman asked. "Yes," I managed to say. "Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you for calling." "I don't understand any of this," she said, "but I know I was supposed to tell you, and I know that whatever God is asking you to do, you need to do it, because Sarah is real, and she's running out of time." She hung up before I could ask her anything else, and when I tried to call the number back, it was disconnected. No such number exists. Do you understand what I'm telling you? God is confirming His word. He's providing evidence. He's removing every excuse, every rationalization, every reason to doubt, and He's doing the same thing for you right now, if you're willing to see it. So let me give you the practical roadmap. Let me tell you exactly what Jesus told us to do in these 30 days, and what you need to do in your 30 days, whatever your assignment is, whoever your person is, whatever your calling might be. Day 1 to 3, the declaration. The first thing Jesus told us to do was make it public, not to seek attention, not to be dramatic, but because there's power in public declaration. When you announce your obedience out loud, when you tell people what God has called you to do, you're burning the bridges behind you, you're making it harder to retreat, you're inviting accountability. Within 72 hours of the final encounter, we had to tell at least 3 people what God was calling us to do, not the whole story, not every detail, but the core assignment. God is calling us to partner together in ministry. We don't understand all of it yet, but we're saying yes. Some of those people celebrated with us. Some of those people questioned us. One of those people told us we were making a mistake, that we were being presumptuous, that we were going to regret it. And that person's reaction confirmed that we were on the right track, because the enemy always uses people close to you to try to talk you out of obedience. For you, this means you need to identify 3 people in the next 72 hours and tell them what God is calling you to do. Not asking their permission, not seeking their approval, simply declaring your obedience and inviting them to pray for you. Type "I will declare" in the comments if you're committing to this first step. Day 4 to 10. The preparation. Jesus told us that the next week needed to be spent in intensive preparation, not physical preparation, but spiritual preparation. He gave us a specific daily practice that I'm going to share with you now, and I need you to understand that this isn't optional. This isn't a suggestion. This is the foundation that will sustain you when everything else falls apart. Every single day for 30 minutes minimum, you must do 3 things. First, 10 minutes of silence. Not prayer, not worship, not Bible reading, just silence. Sitting in God's presence without agenda, without words, without asking for anything, just being with Him, learning to hear His voice above the noise of your own thoughts, above the demands of the world, above the fear and doubt that will try to drown out His whisper. We did this at the waterfall overlook. We went back every morning at dawn for 7 days straight, sat on that platform and just listened. And every single day, Jesus spoke something new, a warning about an attack that was coming, an encouragement about a breakthrough that was ahead, a specific instruction about a step we needed to take. But we would have missed all of it if we hadn't learned to be silent. Second, 10 minutes of scripture, but not random scripture. Jesus gave us specific passages to meditate on, passages about divine assignments and unlikely partnerships and the cost of obedience. Let me give you the list. Genesis 12:1-4, Abraham's call to leave everything familiar. Exodus 4:10-17, Moses and Aaron's partnership. Ruth 1:16-18, Ruth's commitment to Naomi. 1 Samuel 18:1-4, David and Jonathan's covenant. Acts 13:1-3, Barnabas and Saul set apart for ministry. 2 Corinthians 6:14-18, being unequally yoked, but read it in context of divine assignment, not just marriage. Hebrews 11, the entire chapter on faith and obedience. Read one passage each day, not quickly, not casually, but slowly, meditatively, asking God to show you how it applies to your specific assignment. Write down what He shows you. Keep a journal of the revelations, because you're going to need to refer back to them when the attacks come. Third, 10 minutes of declaration. Speaking out loud what God has called you to do, not praying about it. You're past the praying stage. You're in the obedient stage. So you speak it into existence. You declare it over yourself, over the person you're called to partner with, over the assignment itself. Here's what we declared every single day. God has called us together for His purposes. We don't understand all of it, but we trust Him. We will not be moved by criticism. We will not be deterred by obstacles. We will not be distracted by alternatives. We are committed to this assignment, and we will see it through to completion, no matter the cost. You need to write your own declaration based on your specific calling, and you need to speak it out loud every single day, preferably in the place where God first spoke to you about it. For us, that was the waterfall. For you, it might be your prayer closet, your car, a park bench, wherever. But go back to that place. Let it become your altar, your memorial, your reminder of the moment you said yes. Day 11:20, the testing. Jesus warned us that the second and third weeks would be the hardest. The enemy will throw everything he has at you, He said. He'll attack your minds, your emotions, your circumstances, your relationships. He'll make you question whether you really heard from me. He'll offer you alternatives that look easier. He'll use people you love to try to talk you out of it. And if you're not anchored in what I've shown you, you'll fall. He was right. On day 12, I got a phone call offering me a role in a major film production, a role I'd been praying for, a role that would have advanced my career significantly, but it would have required me to be on location for 6 months, starting immediately. 6 months away from the person God had assigned to my life. 6 months away from the preparation we were supposed to be doing together. 6 months that would have pushed us past the February 4th deadline. It was a test, and I almost failed it. I was on the phone with my agent, about to say yes, when I looked at my desk and saw the photograph of the waterfall, the photograph with the date carved into the railing, and I heard Jesus' voice as clearly as if He were standing in the room. What good is success if you miss your purpose? I turned down the role. My agent thought I was insane. My accountant told me I was making a terrible financial decision, but I knew I was making the right spiritual decision. On day 15, the person I'm partnered with got attacked even harder. Their family staged an intervention, literally sat them down and told them they were making a mistake, that they were being manipulated, that they needed to step back and reconsider. The pressure was so intense that they called me at midnight crying, saying maybe everyone was right, maybe we were wrong, maybe we should just forget the whole thing. I drove to their house. We sat in my car in their driveway until 4 a.m., and I reminded them of everything we'd seen, everything we'd heard, everything Jesus had shown us. I showed them the photograph of the handprint on the tree. I told them about the phone call from the woman who knew about Sarah. I read them the journal entries from our morning times at the waterfall, and slowly, the certainty came back. The fear receded. The enemy's attack was exposed for what it was. This is going to keep happening, I told them. Every time we take a step forward, hell is going to push back, but we can't let the pushback convince us we're on the wrong path. Usually the pushback is confirmation that we're on exactly the right path. For you, I need you to understand that days 11-20 are going to be brutal. The enemy is going to attack you in ways you don't expect, through people you don't expect, at times when you're most vulnerable. And you need to be ready. You need to have your declaration memorized. You need to have your scripture passages written down where you can access them quickly. You need to have at least one person you can call at 2 a.m. who will remind you of what God said when your own mind is trying to convince you that you imagined it all. Type, "I'm ready for the testing" in the comments if you understand that obedience will be opposed, but you're committed anyway. Day 21, 27, the breakthrough. Jesus told us that if we made it through the testing period without giving up, we'd experience a breakthrough in the final week. You'll see evidence that I'm moving, he said. You'll see doors opening that you didn't even know existed. You'll see provision coming from unexpected sources. You'll see confirmation after confirmation that you're on the right path. Again, he was right. On day 22, we got an email from a ministry leader we'd never met inviting us to speak at a conference in March. "I had a dream about the two of you," the email said. "I saw you standing together on a stage, and the presence of God was so thick that people were falling to their knees. I don't know what God is doing with you two, but I know I'm supposed to give you a platform." On day 24, a donor contacted us, someone we'd never spoken to about our assignment, and said they felt led to provide financial support for whatever ministry we were launching. They wrote a check that covered 6 months of expenses we hadn't even calculated yet. On day 26, we got a message from a woman in Portland. Her name was Sarah. She said she'd been following my work on The Chosen, and she felt compelled to reach out and thank me because the show had saved her life. "I was in a very dark place," she wrote. "I was planning to end everything. But I watched an episode and something shifted. I can't explain it, but I felt like Jesus was speaking directly to me, telling me not to give up. So I didn't, and now I'm getting help, and I'm going to be okay." I stared at that message for 20 minutes, tears streaming down my face because I knew this was the Sarah from the vision. This was the woman on the bridge, and she was already being reached, already being saved, already being touched by the assignment we'd said yes to, even though we hadn't fully stepped into it yet. Because that's how God works. When you say yes in your heart, when you commit to obedience even before you fully understand it, he starts moving on your behalf. He starts opening doors. He starts orchestrating connections. He starts bringing the vision into reality. For you, this means that if you push through the testing, if you don't give up when it gets hard, you will see breakthrough. You will see evidence that God is moving. You will see confirmation that you heard him correctly, and that confirmation will give you the strength you need for the final push. Day 28, 30. The launch. The final 3 days are about taking the last practical steps before the deadline. Jesus gave us a specific checklist of things that had to be in place by February 4th, public announcement of the partnership. Not just telling 3 people, but making it fully public. For us, that meant announcing it on social media, telling our respective communities, and accepting that some people would celebrate and some people would criticize. First tangible step toward the assignment. For us, that meant booking the venue for the first event we're going to hold together, putting down a deposit, making it real, making it impossible to back out without significant cost, cutting off the alternatives. This was the hardest one. Jesus told us we had to actively close the doors to the other paths we could have taken. For me, that meant telling my agent I was taking a break from pursuing certain types of roles. For my partner, that meant resigning from a position that would have conflicted with the time commitment this assignment requires. Burning bridges, eliminating escape routes, committing fully. For you, these final 3 days are about making it real, about moving from decision to action, about taking steps that can't be easily undone, about demonstrating to God and to yourself and to the watching world that you're all in. And here's what Jesus told us about February 4th specifically. On that day, you need to go back to the waterfall one more time, together at dawn, and you need to make a covenant before me, not a marriage covenant that may or may not be part of this assignment, but a ministry covenant, a commitment that you're in this together, that you won't abandon each other when it gets hard, that you'll see this through to completion no matter what it costs. So that's what we're going to do. February 4th, at dawn, we'll be standing at that waterfall overlook, and we'll be making a covenant before God. And I believe that when we do, the final piece will fall into place, the full assignment will be revealed, and the next phase will begin. But here's what I need you to understand. This isn't just our story. This is a template. This is a roadmap. This is a pattern that God is releasing right now for thousands of people who have been given divine assignments and have been hesitating. Maybe your assignment isn't a ministry partnership. Maybe it's a business you're supposed to start. Maybe it's a mission field you're supposed to go to. Maybe it's a reconciliation you're supposed to pursue. Maybe it's a creative project you're supposed to launch. Maybe it's a stand you're supposed to take. Maybe it's a message you're supposed to speak. But whatever it is, you know what it is. God has already told you, and you've been making excuses, waiting for a better time, hoping for an easier path, looking for more confirmation, and God is saying, the time is now, the confirmation is sufficient, the path is clear, and you have 30 days. Your 30 days start today, right now, the moment you finish watching this video, and 30 days from today, you need to have taken the steps I've outlined. You need to have made your declaration, done your daily practice, pushed through the testing, celebrated the breakthrough, and taken the tangible steps that make it real. I want you to do something right now. I want you to calculate what date is 30 days from today. Write it down. Put it somewhere you'll see it every single day. Make it your deadline, your February 4th, your point of no return. And then I want you to type that date in the comments. Make it public. Invite accountability. Burn the bridge of retreat. Because here's what I know. Some of you watching this are the Sarahs. You're the ones standing on the bridge. You're the ones running out of hope. You're the ones who are supposed to be reached by someone else's obedience. And if they don't obey, if they choose comfort over calling, if they miss their deadline, you might not make it. That's not meant to be manipulative. That's just the truth. We're all connected. Your obedience affects people you've never met. Your disobedience has consequences that ripple out farther than you can imagine. The assignment God has given you isn't just about you, it's about everyone who will be touched by your yes or harmed by your no. And some of you watching this are the ones who have been given the assignment to reach the Sarahs. You're the ones who have been called to partner with someone, to launch something, to step into something that terrifies you. And you've been hesitating, you've been waiting, you've been hoping God would change his mind or give you an easier option. And he's saying, I'm not changing my mind. There is no easier option, and you're running out of time. I'm going to close with this. Yesterday, I went back to the waterfall one more time, alone, at sunset, and I stood at the railing, looking at the date carved into the wood, and I asked Jesus one final question. What happens if we fail? What happens if we get to February 4th and we haven't done everything you've asked us to do? And he said something that both terrified me and comforted me. You won't fail. I didn't choose you because I thought you might succeed. I chose you because I knew you would. I saw the end from the beginning. I saw you standing at this waterfall making excuses, and I saw you standing at this waterfall making a covenant. I saw every moment of doubt, and I saw every moment of breakthrough. I saw the testing, and I saw the triumph. And I chose you anyway, not because you're perfect, but because you're willing, not because you're strong, but because you know you're weak and you're willing to let me be strong through you. He paused, and then he said, but I need you to tell them something. Tell them that I'm saying the same thing to them. Tell them that I've already seen their yes. I've already seen their obedience. I've already seen them standing in the fullness of their assignment, and I'm inviting them to step into what I've already prepared for them. The question isn't whether they can do it. The question is whether they will do it. So that's my question for you. Will you do it? Will you say yes? Will you take the first step today, right now, before fear talks you out of it? Type I will in the comments if you're ready. Type your 30-day deadline date if you're committing to the roadmap. Type pray for me if you need strength for what's ahead. And if you're serious about this, if you're really ready to step into your divine assignment, I want you to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because I'm going to be documenting this journey. I'm going to be sharing what happens on February 4th. I'm going to be reporting back on whether Sarah really does contact us on March 15th. I'm going to be showing you the breakthrough and the battles, the victories and the valleys, the cost and the reward of obedience. This isn't entertainment. This isn't content. This is real life, real faith, real obedience playing out in real time. And you're invited to be part of it, not as a spectator, but as a participant in your own divine assignment. The waterfall doesn't stop falling because the path is difficult. It doesn't pause because the storm comes. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It just keeps flowing, keeps falling, keeps fulfilling its purpose. And that's what God is calling you to do. Keep flowing, keep falling. Keep fulfilling your purpose no matter what it costs, no matter who opposes you, no matter how impossible it seems, because on the other side of your obedience is someone's salvation, someone's healing, someone's deliverance, someone's breakthrough, someone's Sarah standing on a bridge waiting for you to say yes. Don't let them fall because you were too afraid to jump. The clock is ticking. Your 30 days start now, and I'll be praying for you every single day that you'll have the courage to obey, the strength to endure, and the faith to see it through. Go back to your waterfall, stand at your overlook, face your assignment, and say yes. The water is calling, the fall is waiting, and Jesus is standing there, hand extended, asking, will you trust me? What's your answer?